I think that's an important thing to say is, people might see that, oh, he won the overall and then gets a good offer and leaves. I've had people come to me almost every year, many different teams, and I've had pretty far along conversations a lot of times, and it's just never felt right. I think I've been very lucky with when my contracts have expired because either I've won or like I've had a really good season, and it was never like an injury season. It was always like a good season. So I've always gone through these processes. I've talked to some really amazing teams and had really good opportunities. And I've always felt like I just didn't feel like I was ready to move on because at the time we were building this really great team at Rocky, and I felt like I wasn't quite done there yet. And I think looking back, that was a good decision because it allowed us to really, with Rocky's help, create this very high level team, and it's funny because 6 years ago, I was talking to a team that like to me was the pinnacle of teams, and they were just the best. And I was like, okay, that like, yes, if this is an option, that's where I want to go because I've always been very performance based and I just want to do really well. And then that didn't really work out. And then fast forward 5 or 6 years and we've built the team that everyone's kind of like trying to emulate and is really stoked on. So I think that was really cool. So, and I've talked to Fabian at Canyon every one of those times, and he's given me very honest advice, which I've always appreciated. So like we've known each other as friends for a long time, since he was racing 10 years ago. And then this time came around and just felt different. I felt like I'd achieved everything that I wanted to at Rocky, and I'd given them as much as they'd given me, and I just felt like it was time. It was a good time, obviously, like perfect opportunity to get an offer is winning the overall. So like I'm not gonna say that it wasn't, but it just felt good, and I felt like what Kenny was offering was just so much more of what aligns with me as a racer from a performance standpoint. I think Rocky's obviously just they're a small brand. They can't do that much, and they've done an amazing job with us up to this point. And I just wanted to take that a step further. And really, if I'm going to do this, which I am, and I put everything into it already, I want to go to a brand that is going to put more than I do into it. And that's kind of the biggest thing is up until this point, I've done so much of it on my own. Like I had a trainer, and then I figured out that I train really well on my own. Like I don't struggle for motivation, and I'm really good at keeping myself disciplined. And then we're talking about like bike setup, a lot of that stuff. Like it's all kind of just me. Like I said, Rocky makes a great bike at its base, and they've done as much as they can to help us. Like they made us some custom rear end chips and some custom Rad 9 chips, but that's kind of just little tweaks here and there. And they have been good at always doing as much as they can. But Canada is offering just a bigger program with just more focus on performance, which aligned more with what I was wanting. And so that was kind of the biggest thing. And it was really scary. It wasn't an easy decision by any means. It was really tough to obviously leave kind of the team that I was a part of because they're my best friends and it's fun to travel with them. But yeah, it was just felt like it was time.
Sounds good. Are you able to do much like due diligence, I guess it would be called in the business world? Like, do you get much chance to swing your leg over the bikes before you put pen to paper and sign a contract?
Yes and no. I think I could have, but I didn't really need to. There's more information will be clear at some point, I'm sure. But yeah, it was just, that wasn't the biggest part of it. There's a lot of benefits to making the team switch. And so it wasn't just like, I knew the bike worked well. Like last year, all three of those guys were in the top 6, and then still, Jack does super well on that bike. So I know that it's a good bike. So I wasn't really worried about that. The component switch was a big one. That was tough because I've worked with Fox for so long. I think Shimano makes great product. Fox makes great product. Same with Race Face. Like we've had really good luck with those wheels, and everything was like, I think our component spec wasn't lacking in anything. So that was kind of tough because I was like, well, I don't want to leave any of these brands, but just kind of what happens. And since then, it's been really great working with SRAM RockShox. I just was actually in Phoenix for a week doing like some basic onboarding where I just learned everything about the product because I obviously know nothing. So that was really cool. They're super nice. They're super stoked. And obviously it's funny because consumers will make you believe that one is good or one is bad. And I was like in my head, like, oh, like, you know, it's not going to be good. And then you get on the product, and I obviously did tests at the end of the season on the new stuff. And it was just like first round, I was like, oh, it's a bike. It rides. It's fine. Like the brakes work, suspension works. Like it's not like, I don't know what I was expecting, but I mean, I was doing back-to-back testing, and yeah, I definitely think my Rocky was obviously more geared towards my style, like because I'd set it up and I had 3 years to do so. But
yeah,
hopping on the Canyon first lap, I was like, oh, it's fine. I can ride this bike fast. So,
fair play.
yeah.
And that is a big change though, going from Fox Shimano to SRAM RockShox, especially on the brakes and the suspension. I'm guessing are the biggest elements of that. And it's a pretty short off season. Do you feel like all the work that you've done over the last few years, getting to understand the data side of things more, do you think that is helping you kind of get up to speed quicker with some of those changes?
Yeah, I haven't used the data yet just because I've been figuring out what bike and what setup and everything first, and just trying to get comfortable on it, just so that I'm not like going too quickly into something. So I haven't done that yet. I've got it installed on my bike just yesterday, so I'm hoping this week is when I'll start doing that and getting into that side of things. But I definitely think that yes, I've gone through that process before, and I know I can do it in a little bit of a quicker time frame than I have previously. And same thing with that whole change. Like I'm just a very curious person. I like figuring things out, and I think that was a big draw for me, honestly, is just I achieved the number one spot. That was great. That was what everyone would dream of. And of course I want to do it again, but I also like learning and new experiences. And I think that doing the whole switch is just, I get to interact with a whole bunch of new people, learn about a whole bunch of new product, and just kind of ride different stuff and learn about that. And yeah, just learn more, experience more. And I think that's really cool. And so far it's been great. It's different, and I've been impressed with it so far. I can't say much about what I've been riding, but it's really sick. So yeah, it's I'm stoked with it for sure.
Interesting. Yeah. Do you think, I mean, Canyon is a pretty big bike company these days. Do you think you'll have more opportunity there to be involved in the sort of development side of things as well as the racing side? Is that something you'd be interested to do more of?
Potentially, I think at some point for sure. And I've had the same thoughts at SRAM RockShox as well. But it's part of what I was saying before about how I was doing it all on my own. I've kind of made the choice to relinquish a lot of that control, which has been nice. Like it's a lot of pressure to constantly be on myself and train myself and dial in the bike and just do everything, where if it doesn't work, you're the only one to blame, which is how it works most of the time. But it was just a lot. It was kind of overwhelming. And I was excited at the prospect of Canyon has a exclusive in-house trainer. And I was like, okay, like he has experience. Like it'll be really cool to work with someone and kind of take some of that off my plate. And then there's Fabian, has so much of his own experience with bike setup and riding and coaching and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, great, take some of that off my plate. And then going to Canyon and their bikes and their engineers and having a dedicated race department, I was like, okay, sweet, take some of that off my plate. Like I just feel like I have been able to almost get rid of a lot of little things that I had to do and focus more on just being a high performance athlete in a more narrow sense, which is going to be nice, I think, going forward. So there might be more to do at Canyon in terms of that. But for now, my goal and my priority is still racing. And that's what Fabian said. That's why Canyon signed me, is that's my job. And that's kind of nice to just step back out of all these things and just be the racer and put everything into that. So it's it's kind of really cool to have that, because I felt like at Rocky I was always having to prove my worth so that I could stay around, and it was taxing at times.
Yeah, that's a fair comment. That sounds like an awesome setup. What's the sort of schedule then between now and the first race? Because it's a pretty early start. What have you got planned as far as like testing, training camps? Because kind of where you are, I guess, is not always the best place early in the year to get the work done.
Yeah, man, it's been a really hectic month because, like I was saying, the winter has been pretty brutal. The skiing hasn't been good, and it's just been snowing. But it's been snowing a bunch at home, but not actually good skiing. Like the AVI risk is super high, so it's kind of like the worst of both worlds. So I escaped to Tucson for a week of training, came back for Christmas, tried to go to Santa Cruz for some riding, so like for mountain biking, and just got rained out. They have like an insane atmospheric river right now. Like it's scary. They have tons of flooding and landslides. So I got kind of hosed there, which sucked. And then came back for a few days, and then had a testing week planned with SRAM, and so that was finally a good, successful like 4 days of just on their product and learning everything, dialing in with all the people in all the departments. And so that was pretty huge. Like they put a lot into that, and that really just like kickstarted everything. I got so far along really quickly, and actually I'm at a place now where, okay, I've got my race bike for Taz, and now it's just like refining. So it's a really good place to be in. And then the thing that Canyon also was like, we'll fly to Europe whenever you want if you just need a testing training camp. And so we have originally started as a 1-week trip for a team camp. Then it was a 2-week trip to do some training with my trainer. And then now it's a 3-week trip there's a race at the end of it. So I think it'll be perfect. I'll go there for some training, do some testing and some team camp stuff, and then culminating in a race in Europe, which will be really nice preseason before Tasmania. So it's looking forward to it. It is like an earlier race season, where last year it helped, I think, for us to be later because we get so much more time on the bike in the spring, whereas a March race is like tough for us to get really good, consistent riding in, which is where I think like the Euros always have an advantage. So great that I'm on a Euro team now and I get to go to Europe. So that'll be perfect.